Post free agency mock draft, Ty Simpson becomes the Arizona Cardinals' new quarterback.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson. That's Keith Sanchez. And on today's episode, we have a post-free agency mock draft. We're going to go through our underrated picks, those interesting picks that we landed, and then our favorite picks of our mock. Number 3 overall, 3rd overall, you had, so I want to go back. Guys, family, I had AFC, Keith had NFC teams during our round 1 mock. Keith, you took Ty Simpson to the Arizona Cardinals. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I think that people are going to look at this as potentially an overdraft, right? Taking Ty Simpson that high, but looking at the Arizona Cardinals losing Kyler Murray, right? And I believe that they have Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett in the fold at this very moment. And neither one of those guys are long-term answers, right? And so taking a Ty Simpson, he comes in with a brand new regime, right? To me, this is the perfect opportunity to take a new quarterback because everybody's clock is on the same time, meaning that you have new head coach, right? You have new quarterback. So meaning that they're both probably going to get 2 to 3 years to figure this thing out. And if you're confident in Ty Simpson, then you're like, okay, cool. Now, the part that I do like, and I really like it, is the fact that they do have Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew. So he has 2 veterans who've been in a lot of different places, a lot of different situations, have had success, have had failures, right? And they know the right way to go about things, and they can groom the young quarterback to do that, right? I have no problem with, and it's almost going to sound sacrilegious in today's age, is Ty Simpson getting drafted and him being 3rd on the quarterback depth chart starting training camp, right? I have no problem with that. And then allowing him to work his way up. And nobody's looking at the Arizona Cardinals expecting them to win the NFC West, to contend for an NFC championship, and definitely not win a Super Bowl, right? So it's a low expectation situation. So you let Jacoby Brissett, you let Gardner Minshew, start the season, whatever that may be. And if you do a Tyler Shuck type situation with the New Orleans Saints, where he comes in the last 6-7 games and he shows some promise, right? Then you feel really good about heading into the next year. And the 2 things with this sets you up for this. Next year would definitely be a heavy quarterback draft. It has no choice because those quarterbacks have to come out, right? The Archman is Lenore Sellers. Yeah. All of those guys have to come out, right? Arizona Cardinals, you're probably going to be not that good of a football team. Now you have the opportunity to potentially trade back if you're sitting with a top 5, top 7 pick, fleece one of these teams into trading a lot of draft capital. You get even more draft capital, and then now you're building your team with a young quarterback, and everything is on the right timeline. DP, it sounds so much like right that I think is going to go wrong, right? The Arizona Cardinals are not going to do that. They're going to find some way to mess this up.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that there is a lot of smoke around Arizona right now, and them being linked from a lot of people being actually linked and favored to take Ty Simpson. I think it's too high for Ty. Yes, I mean, we talked about it. Like, you asked me that before. Like, hey, would I take Ty top 3? And I'm like, I love Ty, but absolutely not. I wouldn't take him top 3. What I would say is the only team that was, I would say, in round 1 that is a competitor for Ty Simpson to the Cardinals is like the Pittsburgh Steelers. But it's like, do the Steelers really go quarterback at 21, or do they draft another receiver because they only got 2, and that's DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. Both are over or around the age 28 and 29. They need another receiver. So could a Casey Concepcion or somebody around that spot get drafted? I think for the Cardinals, you could probably wait to 34 or pull a Giants if you can finesse that Giants trade. Remember, the Giants traded up. I don't know how they pulled that off, to be able to trade up to get Jackson Dart, but not give up this year's first to do it. You know what I mean? Like, that was masterful work by Joe Schoen, who hasn't done a lot of good things since being the GM over in New York. He hasn't done much, but that was a great job on that. So I love the fit. I think Ty Simpson fits with Mike LaFleur, the new head coach. But it also kind of raises the question: could you wait to 34 and just take Garrett Nussmeier? You know what I mean? Who we've seen a bigger sample size from, especially when healthy. We always talk about the 8 or 9 games of Ty Simpson. You take those 8 or 9 games, then you take the best of that 2024 season from Nussmeier, and I think most people say I'd rather have Nuss.
Yeah, it's definitely an argument and debate to be had, right? And I think a lot of people are going to have that conversation. Ty Simpson in the first and Nuss in the second, right? I think a lot of people are going to have that conversation. I just say with everything aligning for the Cardinals, right, and how they set themselves up, I just say go for it and do what you have to do, and then kind of just curate the situation to be a productive situation. For the
if you're high on that guy, you get your guy. If you're that, if he's your guy, go get him. I have no problem with that at all, Keith. I think for me, my favorite pick is the one that I made, Keith, and that's pick 11, and that was saying.
I'm glad you went, because I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you about the Makai Lemon to the Miami Dolphins, especially with them just offloading Jaylen Waddle, right? Like, that's breaking news. Jaylen Waddle is now with the Denver Broncos, right? So the Miami Dolphins, their wide receiver depth chart, I believe it consists of Malik Washington, Terrace Marshall Jr., Jalen Tolbert. It's not like I would bargain and say it might be the worst wide receiver core in the NFL. Like that wide receiver core.
It is not pretty.
It's not pretty at all. So go and get a guy. So discuss that and why you think Makai Lemon could potentially be a good fit in a good situation.
Keith, I mean, for those who be listening to this pod, hopefully you listened to the one earlier today where we broke down Makai Lemon's actual scouting profile. If you haven't checked it out, it dropped earlier this morning. But yeah, I think, Keith, we mentioned on, like, at the end of that pod, we talked about the Amon St. Brown comp. And what do we say at the end of the show? If you're going to do this, like, for one, it needs to be the opportunity where he comes in as your best talent, right? And you need to then go ahead and go all in on him as wide receiver 1. And I think the Dolphins at 11, if the Dolphins didn't sign Malik Willis, I really wouldn't care. I'm like, you know what, y'all go BPA, go whatever position you want, whatever direction you want. You just, because it's going to look real wild for you to say, okay, we signed this young quarterback who's showing flashes, and it's a Green Bay brain trust, the former DC, I think someone from the front office who's now the GM or something like that. You bring in that brain trust, you know what Malik Willis can do, and then you go and send away his best remaining wide receiver after the team cut the previous, before you got there, they cut Tyreek Hill. I think this sets up Makai Lemon to be able to walk into a situation and be the wide receiver 1, step in and really be able to become that Amon St. Brown, that high volume slot receiver. Similar to, we see a little bit from Amon St. Brown playing this, maybe some outside, but he mostly plays in the slot. I think Makai has more like ability to play outside and everything, but I think his best ball is when you give him that space to work. And I think he would pair well with the Malik Willis in terms of being that quick winner, that quick option, that guy that he can pepper with targets and dictate how the passing game is going to go. And then you got the other guys that just be ancillary pieces. Malik Washington is an explosive run after catch threat who can line up everywhere and handle all the different manufactured touches and stuff. And also, guys, the Dolphins got 7 picks in the top 100. Oh, I expect more than one receiver in this class. They might go get them a big explosive. Keith, they might walk out of this draft with Makai Lemon at 11, and then somewhere in round 2, it's Chris Bell. Then they say, you know what, you go ahead and get healthy. We're good, and that's our 1-2 punch for the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, DP, the Miami Dolphins need to pull a Green Bay Packers from the 2024 draft, I think it was, when they drafted Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave,
Dontavian Wicks, Tucker Kraft.
Tucker Kraft. They drafted 2 tight ends and 3 wide receivers, I believe, in one draft. It was crazy. But they need to do that. They need to do that. So I'm with you on that, and I'll say this to the Makai Lemon point. I think that was interesting, like you said, with him being able to step in at wide receiver 1, and most importantly, you have Malik Willis. Like, why pay him the money if you're not gonna give him the weapons, right? Like, if you were truly blowing this thing up, then just blow it all the way up. But because we've seen Malik Willis in two situations. We've seen it in a great situation with the Green Bay Packers, right, where they had a wide receiver core, they had a good offensive line, they had offensive structure. It was just a good program, right? Then we've seen them in a dysfunctional situation, right, with the Tennessee Titans. And so I will hope if you're the Miami Dolphins that you're like, okay, cool, we have Malik Willis. Let's surround him with the offensive weapons. And obviously, you're going to have to do this through the draft because right now, your best wide receiver is your running back, Devon Achane. I believe he's the most productive wide receiver when it comes to yards. So, DP, let's do this, man. We did favorite picks, right? Let's roll through interesting picks, right? Which picks made you tilt your head to the side? This was a dueling mock draft. So I'll tell you this, we may not have agreed with every single pick. And I might have had my phone. And as DP was plugging in different picks, been like, why did that happen, right? So we will talk about that coming up next.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchup, whatever fits your read. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Look at the odds around your favorite team if they are still within the season. Go safe, go bold, or ride with the team you've been following all season long. Is your parlay your style, now with more upside behind it? Head to FanDuel.com right now today to get started. Again, head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Join the Everyday Club, guys, with the code MARCH and get your first month free. If you sign up before the NCAA tournament tips off on tomorrow, you can compete with me and us in our men's and women's bracket pools on Discord. The winner in each will get $100 in Locked On merch. The rest of us can commiserate in the members-only chats as our brackets are blown up. And as a member of the club, you get an ad-free version of this show. And again, it's all free for a month with the code MARCH at LockedOnNFLDraft.supercast.com. Most interesting picks, Keith, from our post-free agency mock draft.
I have a couple. I'll go to the very back end of the draft. There was a stretch, right? Miami Dolphins at 30 got Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. The New England Patriots, you selected Chris Brazzell, the wide receiver out of Tennessee, to the New England Patriots. And then 32, the Seattle Seahawks selected Notre Dame running back Jadarian Price. I want to talk about picks 31 and 32, the teams that went to the Super Bowl. So New England Patriots selecting Chris Brazzell, and then the Seattle Seahawks selecting Jadarian Price. I want to get your reaction, though, from those two picks. The New England Patriots pick you made, the Seattle Seahawks pick I made. So I want to get your reaction.
Love both of them. I think both of them are I think those are two picks I've made in mock drafts that I've done myself. You know what I mean? Okay. It was like, this makes a ton of sense for Seattle. Zach Charbonnet tore his ACL super late in the season. We don't know exactly when he's going to come back. You let Kenneth Walker, the MVP of the Super Bowl, we give quarterback so much love, and no disrespect to Sam Darnold. It was a running back that won Super Bowl MVP. It was a running back that led your offense and your team and kept your balance. But you let him walk in free agency. Say, we can't pay him. All right, cool. You need to get somebody to run the rock because you don't want to put everything back on the shoulders of Sam Darnold. We've seen what that looks like when you put all of your eggs in the Sam Darnold basket. Jadarian Price, I think, fits this offense. He fits what they're going to want to do, run the football. This offensive line is good. They could, they maybe could have went Emmanuel Pregnon or Chase Basantis and add another guard and everything. But I think you can get guys on day 2 to step in. This interior offensive line class is better than people give it credit for, especially on days 2 and 3 to get some guys that can come in and be starters. So I like the Jadarian Price one. And I think, for me, Keith, it's simple. Like Chris Brazzell II fits that big arm quarterback that they have in New England, Drake May, right? And I've seen Drake May throw deep balls to Josh Downs. I've seen him throw deep balls when he was at North Carolina, the guys that I don't believe are in the league right now. You know what I mean? So giving him a guy like Chris Brazzell, what do I always say? I'm big on building my wide receiver core like a basketball team. Chris Brazzell gives me essentially he's like that athletic slashing four. Like I get the deep ball from him, but also because he's got the 4.3 speed, so he can shoot the three. But then he's also a really good athlete that can absolutely win in the paint, win it at the catch point. I can throw the alley oops to him, and I think that is pairing him with Kyle Williams and with Kayshon Boutte. It just makes sense in my opinion, Keith. And I think that just you lose Stephon Diggs, and that was their number one guy versus man coverage. I think being able to have a threat like Chris Brazzell on the speed, it may force some teams out of that man coverage. Because now when you got a guy that can take the top off the defense, you're either if you playing man, I'm taking the safety with me, and that's going to open up tight end in the middle of the field, Kyle Williams in the middle of the field, or whoever. Heck, Travion Henderson in the screen game. If you do want to play man, I'm gonna take two guys with Chris Brazzell. So I think that made a lot of sense. Interesting pick to me, Keith. Oh man, it was a couple just from Cade McDonald. So I know. Listen, I'm just preparing you, Eagles fans, hearing this. At pick 23, you gave the Eagles Cade McDonald, the big nose tackle out of Ohio State. And I can't channel because I can't speak with the anger of the people of Philadelphia. They're a different breed. But I know for a fact they see this pick come off the board. They're probably looking at Howie like, what are you doing? We just paid Jordan Davis, who's already our nose tackles. Talk to the people of why you went Cade McDonald instead of somebody like maybe a Caleb Banks, who's more of a pass rusher than run stopper.
Yeah, well, my thought process was, you know who your GM is, right? And he's been on the record talking about how much he loves interior players, right? Whether that's offensive line, defensive line, he loves drafting the trenches, right? And this has been a big reason why the Philadelphia Eagles have been really good over the past, let's say 3 to 4 years, right? And I thought about it. I thought about the log jam, right? You have Jalen Carter, you have Jordan Davis. In that situation, you just paid Jordan Davis, but I said, why not? Right. Remember when that rotation, I believe, and this is when Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, I hope that I have this year correct. I believe they still had Milton Williams also, right? Like it was like a 3-4 man rotation in there. And I believe I can't remember if that's the year they won the Super Bowl, if that's the first year they went to the Super Bowl. So I'm thinking if you're able to rotate these guys in and out, right, and keep these big boys fresh, because at the end of the day, they're still big boys. And then let's go back to the draft, DP. Jordan Davis, right? We consistently talked about him, and maybe the numbers have significantly changed in the NFL, but he was always a guy that you had to rotate in and out, right? Just because of the snap share, snap count, things like that. And I just looked at it in this specific position. I like Cade McDonald that much. I think he's a really good interior defensive tackle, and I will say this, that he's probably one of the more underrated players in this draft. Like he doesn't dominate as consistently as Jalen Carter did coming out of Georgia, but there are flashes where he's dominant, where he's playing 3 yards in the backfield and ragdolling offensive linemen. So I'm sitting there saying, and this is the other part too, that the Eagles consistently do this. They let the guy fall to them. Like they've taken a page out of the Baltimore Ravens playbook, right? Okay, cool. Which guy are y'all going to over-evaluate? We're going to take the guy that you over-evaluated, and we're going to take him and put him on our team, even if it's not a positional need. Nobody sat there and said that the Baltimore Ravens in that 2023 draft, when they selected Kyle Hamilton, that a real big team need was they needed safety, right? That we didn't even predict that Kyle Hamilton would go to them, but they sat there and said, Kyle Hamilton, we like him. We'll take him. Appreciate you, NFL. And then watch him be an all-pro caliber player. So that was my thought process of sometimes these teams, they march to the beat their own drum, right? And it may not make it like roster or depth chart sense, but it's going to make football sense when we get to November and December. And then now we're talking about, dang, they're really deep in the trenches, or they're really, they have a really great rotation and they're dominant.
Yeah, I think especially if they lost their was he the DC? He wasn't the DC, but Christian Parker, who left the defensive staff.
Yeah, now he's the DC.
He's the DC in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. And I think there's been talk. I think there's been talk that Vic Fangio might retire eventually. So I think they've been running. If I remember correctly, I think they ran the odd front, in base situations. So if you're going to run the odd front, I think it makes sense there, especially because then you can kick Jalen Carter to one of those end spots, and you can either run with Jordan Davis at the 0, or you can run with Cade McDonald at the 0 and the other plays in. And it's like trying to run on that front with those 3 defensive linemen. And then you just have a situation where you pick and choose whichever one's the hot hand in terms of who's been getting more pressure in that game to pair with Jalen Carter. Cause I think that, that's going to always be like his role. Like, he's going to always be number 1 in that spot. When it's third downs, he's the guy that teams try to keep away from the quarterback. So it makes sense. You know what I mean? I know Philly fans would be like, man, we just drafted another nose tackle. And it was like, they after paying Jordan,
I think he's athletic enough to where he can play some 3 too. Like I think he's versatile enough. Like I'm and that's just in my evaluation of him. Like I'm not pigeonholing him to saying that he gotta play nose tackle and he only could 2 gap. Like to me, there's some sneaky first step explosiveness and quickness, like initial quickness. I'm not saying he's no world-class athlete, but I'm saying I think there's some real movement skills with him when you put him in a bracket of the interior defensive lineman.
No, I understand. I think if for Cade now, I would say if you could get that rookie year of T'Vondre Sweat alongside Jeffrey Simmons, because T'Vondre was getting out the ball with quickness. He was throwing guys around. Like, it's the same stuff he did at the Senior Bowl that year. He did, I believe, it was his rookie year with the Tennessee Titans. How dominant he was and how he was just moving people, getting into the backfield, resetting line of scrimmage. If you can get that out of Cade McDonald, it really pieces things together, because then it really allows whoever's on the edges to get those one-on-ones to get downhill.
Yep, I agree. Well, let's do this, DP. We're rolling through this thing, man. Listen, we knocked out favorite picks. We knocked out interesting picks. What we're about to do is the most underrated picks. Yes, the players, the picks, the teams, right? Which ones flew under the radar that can turn out to be really profitable, right, for the team. Let's talk about that coming up next.
Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you still have to fill is sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that tells it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen other than. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network, number one sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you, the underrated picks in our post free agency mock draft. Keith, I want to go right to the Buffalo Bills for me. This is an underrated pick. At 26, I had AFC. I gave them Lee Hunter, defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. The Bills, going away from Sean McDermott, they went away from the base 4-3 even front. They're more of an odd front team now. And honestly, when I look at this defensive front, they're not equipped for an odd front base. They don't have a true nose tackle. I'm not playing Deion Walker, who you drafted last year, as a nose tackle. Nope. That's not his game. You know what I mean? Like two gapping. Again, it was all pad level, stuff like that. Like, you got to be consistent with that to two gap. Yeah, no, I don't want that. Ed Oliver's definitely not a one tech. You know what I mean? I don't want him two gapping and handling duo blocks either. So I think Lee Hunter comes in, and just like how we talked about with Cade and McDonald and Jordan Davis, to me, putting a Lee Hunter at that 0-1 tech on those base downs when you run it, that allows Ed Oliver, I kick him like a Jalen Carter. I kick him to that 5 tech, that 4-eye 5 tech. He's one of the ends. I kick Deion Walker to one of the ends and allow those guys to have more advantageous matchups and let the guy suited for 0 tech, who's going to bring some physicality, some anger, some aggression, just bring an attitude to your defensive front on the D line, versus the run, because what has been one of the biggest issues for that felt like for a long time with the Bills has always been, man, they lack that dude of versus the run that just stops time, stops everything. And I think Lee Hunter brings every bit of that: the high motor, the aggression, the heavy-handedness, the way he's able to move guys, and he's got, similar to McDonald, people sleep on it. Lee Hunter's got a little bit of first step quickness himself to, talking about slicing into gaps and shooting gaps and stuff like that. That would be a very underrated pick, because I think that allows you're going to deal, what you're dealing with in New England. New England's going to run the football. They got Travion Henderson, and they got Ramondre Stevenson. Mike Vrabel is the freaking head coach. He's a physical dude. They're going to run the football. You don't want to get into a game, whether it's at home or on the road late in the season, or maybe even in the playoffs, and it's a snow game, and they said, we're going to run the ball 50 times today. You don't want to be in that situation. You were in that situation before, years ago, during the Mac Jones rookie year, where he threw 3 passes. They said, that's enough of that, and they just tote the rock the whole game, and they beat you at home. You don't want to be in that situation. I think Lee Hunter brings everything this defensive line needs, and it then allows everybody else to play their spots.
Yep, I'm going to go one pick before you, DP. And I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. I started to go, because it was a pick I made. I started to go wide receiver, right? Final wide receiver for them. Obviously, with them losing DJ Moore, right? But I think I think they'll probably go wide receiver in the later rounds, maybe 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, something like that. Try to add in another key piece to this, especially with them losing DJ Moore. I went with Arizona State offensive tackle Max Ehanechoor. Reason I did that was because this young man, and I was hesitant to do it, right? I wanted them to draft offensive tackle, but Max is a right tackle, right? Darnell Wright currently plays right tackle. And I was like, okay, how do we figure this out? Do you swing Max over to the left, right? And you have a rookie playing the left tackle position. But I was like, you know what we should do is put Darnell Wright on the left side, right? And this is something I thought they should have done last year. Put Darnell Wright on the left side. He played some of that in college, right? Put him on the left side, slide in Max Ehanechoor to the right tackle position, and then rock and roll and lock and load from there. Darnell Wright was a top 10 pick when he came out. We liked him because he was so versatile in what he did. He played almost every position at Tennessee along the offensive line. I think he's crossed over into being a veteran now, right? He has some playoff experience, right? Played in some high leverage moments. Let him play the left side. Him playing the left side has to be better than the options of which y'all gave Caleb Williams last year as far as the left tackle. Kick him over to the left, draft Max Ehanechoor, who showed to be a high level, in my opinion, a high level offensive tackle overall, playing on the right side, and then rock and roll from there. And I think you have your solution as far as left tackle, right tackle.
So, yeah, when I saw you make the pick, so what went through my mind when I saw the pick, I thought you did it because of the injury to Ozzie Trapilo, because he had I think it was a ruptured and torn patella tendon, which I talked to people. They say he's probably going to miss, I think, most, if not all, of the 2026 season. So, and everything, because he played well as a rookie, but then he had that injury. We won't see
so to bounce back from. And you don't want to wait an entire year, right? And then also I thought about that, DP, and then I asked myself, who do I believe is the better prospect? Ozzie was a decent player, right? And I think he is an NFL caliber offensive tackle, but with him potentially being out most of next year, right? Or not being up to par most of next year, then what are you going to do at the offensive tackle position? You already gave away Caleb's number one option in DJ Moore. So then you need to at least get the offensive line situation figured out while he's still building a rapport with the rest of these wide receivers, right? Like, now you have nothing but young guys stepping into situations.
Yeah, I think with that one, because one guy that fell and didn't make it in our I can already hear Bears fans say, well, in that case, give us Caleb Lomu out of Utah. And Caleb fell completely out of our round one, out of our mock, to be completely honest, because he's like a true natural left tackle. You could leave Darnell Wright without having to flip him. But I think in this situation, like I said, with that serious, how serious of an injury that is to Ozzie, when I saw you make the pick, I was like, it's interesting, but it makes sense because that injury is serious, especially for offensive linemen. It's very difficult to come back to and play up to the par you were playing. And he's a young guy. Maybe he heals much better than we're giving him credit for. You know what I mean? But hopefully he comes back healthy in 2027. And now as an old line coach, you say, you know what? I got Max, I got Ozzie, I have Darnell Wright. What does my interior offensive line situation look like? If Max and Ozzie are good, I would kick Darnell Wright in the guard and let him be a people mover on the inside,
He
close
could do
the
that
reins
part
over
too,
the, you know what I mean? Because he's the more versatile guy out of those three, where I'm like, okay, well, Ozzie, I'm not putting you at
Which,
guard.
if I'm
Max,
not
I'm not putting you at
mistaken,
guard.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there was it the guard, was it Drew Dolman that retired?
Yeah, the center, matter of fact,
Center. Yeah, the center. So you're gonna have to
Mhm.
reshuffle the deck once again, right?
That's
So
a fact. That's a fact. They definitely going to reshuffle it. So that was a pick that when I saw it, I was like, okay, it makes sense overall because this injury and again, we saw if you're at Chicago, man, you saw the growth of Caleb in year one of this Ben Johnson's offensive scheme. And you're like, man, we want to keep this going. But what can derail that immediately? Offensive line play.
yeah,
Or the
well,
lack thereof.
and what was the biggest thing to where they took the step forward, right? Most of the weapons were in place already, right? Like outside of Colston, Loveland, and Luther Burden, but DJ Moore and Roma Dunze were there, right, with the last regime. It was the offensive line, them bringing in the interior offensive linemen, right, to kind of plug and play and be able to rock and roll, bringing some veterans, some guys that play. So I just think that it's key that they get something, like they figure out the offensive line, right? Because to me, Caleb Williams played and finished the season at a Pro Bowl-esque level, right? I'm not going to call him a Pro Bowler, but a Pro Bowl level-esque level, right? Next year is about the consistency part. I always say this, that greatness is tied to consistency, right? You can see a quarterback play one great game, right? And be like, oh, man, that was one great game, right? You can see a quarterback play one great season, right? But greatness is year in and year out, you're playing at a high level. So this is not, if I was a GM, if I was Ryan Poles, I'm not approaching this with, okay, the offense is good, right? Like they don't need any more. I'm not worrying about that side. I'm not approaching this with this mindset. I need to make sure Caleb can do that again, because last year, like let's say tiers, right? And tiers and quarterbacks, and these are not comps. I'm just talking about tiers, right? Last year, Caleb potentially played at a Kirk Cousins-esque level, right? Like somewhere around a Kirk Cousins solid NFL quarterback, right? You drafted him with the expectation of him being Aaron Rodgers. He has another level to go, right? And you want to make sure that you get him to that level. So the work is not done for the Chicago Bears front office.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think, like I said, it makes sense. Protect your quarterback. Let him continue to develop in this system without having to worry about whether or not I'm going to be protected, by my offensive line. We're good up front. We can run the ball. We can stop the Packers pass rush. We can stop the Lions pass rush. You know what I mean? Like the Vikings, and we know what Brian Flores likes to do, the simulated pressure looks and like really confuse you and make you communicate. So I'm all the way there with you on that, Keith. But this was a fun mock, man. Post free agency, like some of the trades and stuff like that that's going on, and just seeing where some teams could potentially land, especially those teams that like the Dolphins and Chiefs, who now have 2 first-round picks.
Yep. We'll see. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all gonna talk to us? We like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. On tomorrow's show, Chris Brazel II, we're breaking down his film, pros, cons, NFL comps, and explaining the grade, all of that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.